Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea, one that might just change how you see your own patterns in life. We're talking about breaking the loop. Getting unstuck from a pain that feels way too familiar and learning how to create a new conscious rhythm instead. So, let's get into it.
First, let's talk about a feeling that might hit a little too close to home. It's that sense that you're stuck on a treadmill, just running and running but not really getting anywhere. Really think about that for a second. You feel like you're moving forward, making some progress, but then somehow you end up right back in the same emotional spot. And it's that bone-deep weariness, right? The kind that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It's more of a soul-level fatigue that comes from fighting the same battles day in and day out. Yep, those same arguments. Maybe they're with your partner or your family, or maybe they're the arguments you're having inside your own head. It feels like you're just reading from the same script every single time. And this can be the toughest part. That feeling that you're totally alone in this cycle, that nobody could possibly get it. Well, if any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know you are not alone. And more importantly, there's a reason it keeps happening and a way to actually change it.
So why? Why do we get stuck like this? Well, the answer is probably not what you'd expect, and honestly, it's a total game changer. It's not about some flaw in your character. It's all about how your brain is wired.
This is so important to get. Let's just get this idea off the table right now. What you're going through is not a sign that you've failed. It's actually a sign that a very old, very powerful system inside you is just trying to keep you safe. This is such a huge shift in perspective, isn't it? We tend to take these patterns so personally, thinking, what's wrong with me? But the reality isn't about you being broken. It's about your nervous system running a program it learned a long time ago. It's a safety program. And that brings us to this core idea, familiar pain. Your brain isn't seeking out pain because it enjoys it. No way. It's seeking out what's known. Think about it. It actually prefers the predictable misery of a pattern it recognizes over the terrifying uncertainty of something new, even if that new thing is peace. For our ancient brain, safety always trumps happiness. Okay, so if our nervous system is just running a program, where did that program even come from? Well, it turns out our bodies keep a very detailed score. This is it. This is the source code for those safety programs. Those past events, those moments of hurt or fear that never really got resolved, they don't just vanish. They get stored in your body, and they literally create the invisible loops we find ourselves trapped in. I just love this quote. It paints such a clear picture, right? It's not like we just accidentally stumble into these situations over and over. On a subconscious level, our body is actually seeking them out. It's trying to recreate that original scene, not to punish you, but because it's desperately hoping that this time we can get a different ending. It's actually trying to heal itself. So, if our body is actively trying to run these loops, how in the world do we get out? Well, this is where we make the shift from just understanding the problem to actually creating the solution. We're going to move from a reactive loop to a conscious rhythm. And here is a super important point. Everything we've talked about so far, that gives you awareness, which is great. But awareness by itself is not enough to stop the loop. You can't just think your way out of a pattern that your body is physically running on autopilot.
The real key is something called embodiment. And all that means is practicing getting out of the story in your head and getting into the actual sensations in your body. See, change doesn't happen by analyzing the loop from a distance. It happens by feeling it and then choosing a different physical and emotional response right in that moment.
Now, I know this might sound a little abstract, but it's actually a super practical process. There's a clear 3-step method you can start using to build this new rhythm for yourself.
Okay, let's break it down. Step 1 is about being kind to yourself. When that familiar, yucky feeling comes up, instead of fighting it or judging it, you just meet it with a little tenderness. Then, step 2, and this is where the magic happens, you intentionally create a little space, a pause. Maybe it's just one breath between the thing that triggers you and how you usually react. And step 3 is what happens over time. The more you practice that pause, that old automatic repetition starts to evolve into a new, intentional rhythm that you choose. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. That tiny moment of a pause, that is everything. It's the space where you stop being a passenger in your own life and you actually grab the steering wheel. It's where you interrupt that old programming and show your nervous system that a new, safer, better response is actually possible.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. It doesn't have to be some huge, life-altering change. Just think about one small, recurring trigger in your day. Before you send that reactive text or spiral into that old thought, what would it feel like to just create one single conscious breath of a pause? Because that, right there, that's where all the change begins.